probably the most meaningful thing that I've done, both personally and professionally, have been my two Fulbrights. Back in 1995, I did my first Fulbright to Slovenia, an Eastern European country. At that time, our children were 5 and 10 years old, and they went with my wife and me. So it was personally meaningful. It was the first time our family had been together out of the U.S. It was the first time that we were experiencing a lot of different things. We were in a city instead of being in a small town. My son was going to international school. So all sorts of things on a personal level. Then on a professional level, of course, a Fulbright is very prestigious, and I was able to interact with people at the U.S. Embassy in Slovenia. I was able to interact with deans and distinguished professors in the capital city, Ljubljana, where I was a professor. So professionally, it was very rewarding as well. That was probably the biggest thing of all. Now, certainly the textbook that I have co-published with Professor Bill Davey from the University of Louisiana, the first edition of that book came out in 2011, and then the second edition came out in 2018. And as we speak, we're working on the third edition right now that should probably come out right around the beginning of 2022. That's certainly been significant accomplishment. I've been teaching media law for decades, and to have a book that followed the way I feel that the subject should be taught was very Time has a lot of different meanings. One is, where are we right now? Almost like a map. If you say, what time is it? It's almost like saying, where are we in the day? That's asking what time it is, but it's almost as if to say, what position are we in? Right? Where are we with respect to the day? Is it time to wake up? Is it time to go to sleep? Is it time to eat lunch? All of those are mileposts in the day. Those are a type of time. But when you think about time in the longer sense, over 10 years, over 20 years, over 30 years, there's a wonderful quote that I like a lot. There's a wonderful quote that says, "The days are long, but the years are short." And I think that summarizes the idea so much. When you are in the moment, during the day, it can seem so long. There's so much to do. I have to do this and I have to do that. Because you're focused on those little events of the day. What's happening now? What am I going to be doing in an hour? But after the year has passed and you look back on that one day, it's almost meaningless. That one day is just a blink of an eye, right? So I love, and I should say, I believe the quote is attributed to Gretchen Rubin, who says, "The days are long, but the years are short." And it depends on how you frame time. If you're looking at time in terms of today, it's very long. There's a lot happening. There's lots to do. I've got to get here. I've got to get there. But when you stop and reflect and you look back at a year, it doesn't look like such a long thing. And I think that's another reason why people who are older tend to look back on time differently from younger people. When you get older and you reflect more, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you can look back on that time. If you're only 20 years old and someone says to you 10 years ago, that's half of your life. But if you're in your 60s and someone says 10 years ago, you say, oh yes, I remember 10 years ago. I remember that we were, and it almost seems like it's contemporary. But if you're 20 and you look back 10 years, your life has changed so much in those 10 years. But if you're 65, 10 years ago, not a lot has changed, right? you're pretty much the same.